Thank you for joining us today. These briefings, these sessions are intended to be educational. We hope to, Dennis joined. Wonder, hey, Dennis. We hope to continue to do these. My name is Matt Kernodle. I own a company called YB Marketing. I've got 30 some odd years, a lot of years in state sales and marketing in the direct aspects. I would kind of hope to retire by now, but whatever, I can't do it yet. Joining me today as guests are Chad Hodges and Steve Lower. And each one has a unique perspective and a unique background, and we want to hear from them, not from me. So also, folks, for those who are joining, the intent being is your questions are the most important questions. I have a set of questions that I enjoy asking, but the most important aspect are the folks who are joining us today. So if you see my eyes moving back and forth, I'm monitoring your questions and your comments on the event today. We're going to start with Chad. We're giving each of us kind of 20 minutes, and we'll try to end around 11:55. If there's any people that have come or returned, I'm happy to hear your questions, and I would love to hear anybody's successes looking at Skippers and other programs that we cited last time. So without further ado, let's introduce Chad. Now, the first thing about it, before we talk to Chad, Chad's in a very unique location. A little bit, it made Steve and I just a smidgen jealous. So, Chad, can you give us some background and tell us where you are, sir? And where's your hat?
My hat is sitting right here. Here, let me put it on just so we can set the vibe. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I'm actually sitting on the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. In beautiful East Coast Mexico, about an hour and a half south of Cancun. Small little town called Playa del Carmen, where the water is very beautiful. The fish are even tastier to eat. And yeah, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me here today.
All right. Okay. So yeah, and yeah, that looks like a beautiful. And there's also you also have the luxury of fish and dolphin, which is not considered a fish, is it, Chad?
No, they're a mammal. Yeah. And they have oceans and they can communicate. Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
Okay, so that is I would love to know more about Mexico and visit and all of that. But getting on to the business aspect, one of the joys for us in these kinds of sessions is talking to folks who have been there and done that kind of thing, if you will, folks. So, from Chad, give us a background on how long you've been working with government. What different roles you have played in working with government?
My government time started as a teenager, actually. I joined the United States Marine Corps at the ripe young age of 16 in the mid-90s. And, you know, it was a fantastic start to a career that I didn't know I was going to get into, honestly. As a United States Marine, I was immediately shipped overseas and hooked up with units that were first responders to conflicts all around the world. So that was how I started in government. Came back stateside, got into IT because I worked for a general in California who said, you know what, Hodges, you're going to do something with your life. And he said, go pick a degree. We're gonna send you to college because we see something in you and we want you to pick a path. And I picked technology because it looked familiar, because I had started to use a lot of the emerging technology that was coming out in the late 90s in our conflicts around the world. And so for me, it was just a fantastic, entry point into what's developed into a very fun and exciting career in technology. And it's taken me all across our beautiful world, into our beautiful country, and into our beautiful state. Being from California, born and raised, the state of California is near and dear to my heart, and I've done a lot of fantastic work with them over the last 20 years.
Well, you know, and I know I gave you a list of questions, but just jumping into your service and also as a disabled veteran business enterprise, what is your involvement and what is your not stance, but your commitment to that process in the state? But it means far more than just a process in the state. So
absolutely, being a disabled vet myself, I'm a huge advocate for doing business not just with disabled vets, but small businesses as well. Right, they are the backbone of this beautiful country, and more specifically California. It's important for small businesses to have a means to do business with government. And I think it's been fantastic to partner with the likes of Department of General Services, California Department of Technology, Department of Finance, and Fiscal over the years to really bolster those things up. I also sit on the small business chair committee for TechCA, which is an association here in California, and partnering with folks like TechWire, who are big advocates. They have been fantastic partners over the years, just preaching the word of doing business with small businesses and reporting on the wins that small businesses and DVBEs have. So it's been fantastic to be able to partner with such a phenomenal ecosystem in the Sacramento region and the broader California state.
Okay. So speaking to that, what do you see transpiring? What do you see, for example, the percentage of an increase? What are some of maybe policy legislation that might be happening in the DVBE/small business space?
It's good that you bring that up. We're actively lobbying right now to work with the state of California to increase it. And it's sort of a no-brainer. It has not changed in over 15 years, right? There's a $250K cap per deal on deals with an average revenue, top line revenue of around 15 to 16 million over a 3-year period. And those numbers have not changed. The average revenue has changed, but the dollar size, the dollar amount for a particular deal has not changed in over 15 years. We're actually actively lobbying. We have a number of supporters that are behind it and want to do it. We're even saying something as simple as match what they do at the federal level, right? State of California is a nation state. We're the 5th largest economy in the world. And there's no reason why we couldn't increase those levels to numbers that would be, at or near the federal level. Obviously, the federal government's the largest spend in our nation, but California is not far behind, and then Texas and New York and Florida and a couple others. So it'd be phenomenal to see those numbers increase. We're not trying to ask for a set amount. We're just trying to say, let's evaluate it. Let's set a mechanism, and let's ask DGS's director to be the authority for determining when those levels go up or down. Because our new director at DGS, she doesn't even have the power to actually increase it if she wanted to, because it's actually in statute. It's a law, and it's capped at the number that it's capped at. So we have to change the law.
Do you need, or do you find support from the DVBE community? Like, are you trying to increase our voices to a legislator, or to gain sponsorship, if you will? Is that something we can work on?
100%. There's 2 things that I'm passionate about, and that's technology and veterans. From my perspective, it's really about making sure that disabled veterans are given a fair shake. They're all hard workers. They want to work. They want to earn the dollar that they're being participatory in, right, when it comes to bids. So it's not a lack of desire, it's just a lack of access. So making sure that access is there. Also for small businesses, right? We've got women-owned, minority-owned. We've got all these really great, unique businesses doing business with government in California, and they're stifled to a certain degree. So it'd be great to increase those thresholds and let them all do a lot more business.
So that's a very interesting point. That's really the core of what all our businesses do, right? We're trying to give a voice to a group of, the largest group in California is small business group. I mean, but they often feel, and I'm a small business, and I think you folks are small business, we often feel like we don't have a voice. So when it comes to procurements, we see these large procurements coming out. The IT, Information Technology Master Services Agreement has just come out. A lot of companies have, the mechanisms in place. The big companies have the mechanisms and the people in place to respond. What advice do you give to small businesses and DVBEs to gain a voice? Would it be respond to every bid you get? Would it be connect with your lobbyist? Would it be focus on target departments, if you will? What's kind of your feeling of how they get started and how they build a market in government, if you will?
Most people know me for my work at ENS, Enterprise Networking Solutions, and my business partner and I, we recently sold that company. But when Pulse started it in 1999, it was a small business, and it was for the first 10 years of its life. We actually didn't lose our small business status until halfway through, right? And that company, is a 20-year-old company this year before being acquired. And so the reality is it may feel as though you've got to go after every bid, right? Because you're hungry and you're passionate and you want to have a voice and you want people to see you. But the reality is that we did our best work, Paul and I, when we made the decision, and we kind of had a heart-to-heart about it when we focused. When we focused on the things that our people were really good at, because at first our organization was founded as a services-only company. That's all we did. And, it was really once we made the commitment to focusing and not trying to be everything to everybody, it was amazing to see how broad the word got out in terms of these guys are very good at X, right?
Yeah.
And at the time we were very good at Microsoft, very good at VMware, very good at infrastructure data center stuff. And when we stopped trying to do all the other things that we weren't good at, which was at the time things like networking and security, we weren't good at those things yet, right? It took us years later to that focus, that hyper focus on doing the things that you're good at, and then adding on complementary services that made sense around that core. Boy, things really just took off, and it was that focus, that maniacal focus they talk about, right? And being really, really good at one or two or tops three things when you're starting out is really only going to help make you better. So.
How did you then select? Did you say? And totally 100% agree with that kind of focus. And we're going to get to even Dennis from TechWire's on the call today, and I'm going to get to an article that I absolutely is so supportive of how to approach a marketplace. And it was a comment made by the CIO or CTO at CalPERS about those who approach a market or a department with knowledge, not just, hey, what are you guys buying? That's the silliest question to me.
That sounds like Christian. Yeah, I've heard Christian say that exact word.
Yeah. So how did you then, once you have this focus, who do you then say, okay, we're going to, like, are you do after mid-tier departments? Do you go after agency level and trickle down? Where did you say we're going to spend some time now?
I'd like to shout out a couple of gentlemen that really helped Paul and I. Once we made that decision to focus, they really helped guide us in terms of our approach to who to approach and who to talk to at the state of California. It was a former company, it doesn't exist anymore, but PSP, Public Sector Partners, Russ Hicks and Anthony Souza. They sat Paul and I down and they said, look, you got to do this, this, and this, and you got to do it well, and you got to do it at a high clip. And that actually helped a lot. So now, fast forward, we just had our my Veterans Golf Tournament. The 10th annual was just last week on Veterans Day. And I ran into Anthony and we had another conversation about now me trying to pay that forward and give sort of service back, right? And really educate my customers now, because my new business model under HSB is primarily business development and educating organizations on how to approach government and how to work with them and be partners to them. They are not transactions. They are not products that you're just selling to a house or a shop or whatever you want to call it. They are people. They are people with families. They are people with a community. They are people that have way too much on their plate and are looking for others to be partners to them as well. And that was the best advice I got. So a maniacal focus, a willingness to be partners and not just trying to transact and do a deal, right? Understanding your community, living in your community. I tell companies all the time, if you're going to come into California and think that you're going to parachute people in from the East Coast and do deals and have this grandiose success, you're not, right? You need to live here. You need to be here. You need to be present. And if that means you have to hire here, then you have to hire here. If you have to offer people relocation services, then you have to offer them relocation services. But you need to be a part of this community. You need to be a part of, the customer base that is going to consume your solution services. And it's key. It's paramount.
Yeah. And that's well said. We all know that there's no one call close, if you will. And to me, the people, it's like it's the 100th call, or it's kind of the showing of a commitment to somebody. And again, we're going to cite this article because I just thought it's what we tell folks all the time is that, we're not going after 1,000 departments. We're trying to find those people that we can connect with, and that repeated connection through educational processes, educational webinars. It's kind of a cool world in my mind, because it's now where those old school ways of getting deals kind of thing, it's kind of gone. Any restaurant you go to, any place you go to, you Yelp, you look at their references, you look at their background, you look at their website. We don't need to talk to anybody to vet a company any longer. So we know if they're committed to state, we know if they're committed to a department or a technology focus, if they have the certifications. Do you though, Chad, do you like, we get 170, we're tracking 170 bids for customers right now. And so my typical stance is, okay, you've got to go through them. You've got to ascertain whether or not the department is willing to listen to concept and ideas, or are they really just kind of buying a product through the heading of an RFP, RFI? Do you still try to go after I guess what contract vehicles do you strongly suggest for the small business and DBBE, which is going to lead to Steve pretty quickly?
I think a lot of people tend to believe that the quote unquote bigger bids are ones that are, I'm sorry, the bigger vehicles are ones that they should not go after. ITMSA is a perfect example. The reality, though, is they have small business and DBBE carve out on those vehicles, right?
Yep.
And if you have a focus on capabilities, you should absolutely try to apply yourself if you have references. If you have references of projects you have done with the state of California, and you have talented individuals who work for you, who do amazing work, and if you have that dedication and that focus to do more business with government, go apply for the ITMSA that is now out for rebid. Go apply for a CMAS that is references your a GSA schedule. Find those BD reps, such as Steve Lower, that know how to go help you set those contract vehicles up and be hugely successful in doing professional services with government. Other vehicles, if you want to be a value-added reseller, you want to sell products, hardware, software, cloud, whatever it is, then you start looking at things like SLP, State Licensing Program. This is what Steve's going to talk about today. That program was started by him a long, long time ago, and it's an amazing vehicle because what it does is it gives the state of California an easier mechanism to get to value-added resellers who are willing to go the extra mile to not just sell the vendor's products, but also probably layer on their solutions and their capabilities around delivery on top of those products. So it's an amazing vehicle, but you got to work with the manufacturers and you have to work with the Department of General Services and gentlemen like Steve Lower who are going to be able to navigate that and help you get through those pitfalls. Having done it myself now dozens of times, that is a vehicle that has been fantastic. But I'll tell you, the two that I'm the most proud of, because Matt, you asked me to touch on the two that I'm most proud of. The two that I'm most proud of are the enterprise technology contracts that we won, both as ENS and separately with myself as HSB. The state of California, I thought, just knocked a home run on that one. Years ago, that vehicle was meant to kind of buy hardware that was going to be used by the one vendor that won. They realized as a state that wasn't going to fit the bill because the state's too broad, it's too big, and has too many technologies that evolve and change rapidly. And so they modified their approach to the enterprise technology contract, and they went out to 17 of the top tier manufacturers that are delivering hardware technology still, and had them work with the resale community partners to develop the best price for the state of California, and then awarded that for 3 years with 2 one-year options. And that one was exciting because ENS we won 6, HSB I won 1. And so it gave it broadened our capability. The other one, and I really love what CDT is now starting to develop into, is a broker of services. California Department of Technology has developed the VHHS program, right? And that is the concept of bringing in vendor hosted solutions that then the state of California can end up being a partner on to provide that service around something. And the one that we won was the storage as a service contract at ENS. Premise-based storage inside the state of California's data centers that is safe, it's secure, premise-based, because there are still departments that are struggling with the cloud adoption model. Yep. They're not sure what to do. They may have very rigid security requirements. And the state of California's data centers already have a lot of those certifications taken care of and worked out with their SOC under Vitali and with Leanna's infrastructure team, taking care of all the managed services and the data center white floor, power, cooling, all of those cool things. So that was another amazing vehicle that we were able to partner with the state of California on, and taking over a lot of that infrastructure storage debt, and then offering it back out at pennies on the dollar to really, make sure that the state didn't just have their cloud partners, but also had a premise-based cloud, a private cloud that they could still rely on and have success with.
It's easy and wonderful to see your passion, quite frankly, my friend. So it's wonderful to have you here today. I think it's invigorating to hear someone with passion, and I feel like the state is open to conversations like that. I really do. I've always felt that way. I feel people kind of give up, or maybe don't spend the investment of time, money, and to understand processes. So I greatly appreciate your time, Chad. I don't know if you can continue to hang out with us, but And folks
But
on the call and the folks that didn't attend, we'll make, I'll send out a note about how to contact each of us and how we might help in the future. And, maybe we'll, if you're so willing, we'll have you back. Maybe you won't be in Mexico. Maybe it'd be like in Australia or someplace.
I'll try to be honest. I
Yeah.
promise. The timing of this was just what it was.
Oh, no, I love it. I love that you took the time, and I love where you are, and I appreciate your time greatly. So is there any one last thing that you would encourage folks to do? I know you've already been a source of great encouragement. What other things can folks do?
I loved your point about, on the surface, it looks like people tend to give up when they try to engage with government. I'll tell you this right now. Government is recession proof. Hear my words. Government is recession proof. They pay their bills. They always pay their bills. I've told every company that I've ever done business with, even when I owned, ENS and now that I own HSB and partner with companies in a different way as business development, the state of California always pays its bills, even in a recession. And the reality is, if you don't have a government practice, the ebbs and flows that are going to happen with your managed services, your professional services, and your value-added resale solutions services are going to be diminished in a downturn. Get a government practice. Don't let it be a surface relationship. Let it be real. Engage with the government. Make sure that you're talking to people, getting into meetings, and not just because you want to do a deal, but because you genuinely want to solve problems for constituents and solve problems, because that's what government employees take a lot of pride in doing the work that they do. They don't always get paid the same as what we get paid in the private sector. So they take pride in developing those relationships and be meaningful in your communication and be purposeful in your execution. That's all I could say.
That's wonderfully said, and I think that's it's kind of funny that you mentioned that. But back in my Unisys days, we called on DMV in the good times, and we called on EDV in the not so good times. So yeah, anyway,
they pay their bills. I love them.
Yeah.
They've always been great partners to me. So thank you, everybody. And Steve, I can't wait to hear Steve because he's always been a great partner. I love this guy.
All right, you got to follow up on Steve. That was pretty. That's a remark. I mean, I wasn't even going to give you that kind of accolades to introduce you, but
I know Chad's been a great friend, and what a resource of information today from Chad. That was great, Chad, for all the viewers out there.
Sir, I'm following your lead. I appreciate you.
So, Steve, in your background, so you've had, Chad just mentioned it, the trying to make contracting. There are oftentimes a vehicle that is necessary. We talked about the ITMSA. We talked about certifications for small business. And I think most consultants like myself or others, when someone asks, what contracts do I need? The general answer is get everything, right? I mean, it's get your DVB, get your small biz, get your CMAS, get your SLP. But the SLP, how would you position it? Would you say it's emerged as kind of the go-to for many state departments? And if so, what makes it so wonderful for a state department to participate and use it?
Okay, first let me explain a little bit. When I first started with this SLP program, I had to negotiate contracts with each software publisher and the terms, conditions, and things like that. And it was taking like 6 to 9 months to get a contract in place. It just wasn't working. It wasn't. So I had to come up with some idea of streamlining the process because I was getting bombarded with all these different negotiations. So anyway, DGS Legal was okay with coming up with this letter of offer, which saved all kinds of time. So actually, the reseller is going to be the prime on the contract, and the publisher doesn't even have to be committed to any of those terms and conditions. It's really actually the reseller. So that actually saved months of time. We can actually get a contract in place. I was actually doing them within 2 to 3 weeks compared to 6 to 7 months. But the whole reason was to streamline this process, to make it easy for the departments, make it easy for the resellers to actually take advantage of those situations that came up or opportunities that came up. So it was an ease of purchase. That was my first concern. I want to make it very easy. It was only software, so you're only talking software on this contract. So it was very simple. There was an exemption process I wanted to include in there because the maximum order limit was $2 million, but there were different opportunities once you added maintenance to these contracts that would exceed that order limit. So we included an exemption process over $2 million, which I handled many of those, and really didn't have one that was that didn't go through. So that really was a positive thing. And no protests under the contract. It's a very easy, seamless department. Departments, hey, I need this certain solution or technology. I send out an email. If it's over $10,000, then I'd send an email out and say, hey, I need this product. They could get it within 2 days. If they said, hey, give me your price. This is what we need. I need it in 2 days. They could get it. So it was a very quick process. Also, adding products on that. I wanted to make sure that if a department wanted to add a product, they could make it quickly. They could add that product quickly. One of the requirements on the SLP is the publisher has to publish their pricing. That is really a good thing if they publish it on their website or they publish it on maybe their pricing is published on another state's website. But there are ways to get your products added quickly as long as it's published, and that can happen, within a week. Where if you go through other vehicles, it could take months to happen. So it was just making the process easy for mainly the departments, which trickled down to making it easy for the publishers and resellers and DGS to manage.
And one of the aspects you've already just touched on, CMAS was kind of way back in the day when I think it was Carol Umfleet was there. That's probably 30 years ago. I remember the 1423 26th Street or someplace.
He started the program, yes.
Yeah. So CMAS was kind of like sometimes you'll sit through a DGS presentation, bless their hearts, and they will still have in that little brochure, to get your CMAS. But I think it's, get certified as a small business and then get your CMAS. But the kind of the reality of that's really changed. And although it's been a program that's been out for some time, the SLP, it's really changed the way departments have procured. And one of them is the order value limit, correct?
Yes. If CMAS is a 500,000 max, that's another reason why SLP is a little more popular. And CMAS has a bunch of different IT and non-IT products under that contract, which is great. It's always been. I was helping CMAS when it first started. Carol Umfleet was my boss, and it was the best program out there. And it is still a good, viable program. The order limits kind of constrain departments on how much they can purchase, and publishers, when they have a big opportunity, they don't have an exemption process under that vehicle. So it kind of makes for software, obviously, the SLP a vehicle that would actually work better for departments.
What is that? When you say the exemption process, is that related to delegated authority, or what is that? Can you explain what that is, what that process might be?
Well, okay, so departments, they have the credential through a credential process where departments have a limit of what they can purchase under a vehicle. So it's called accreditation program that they have under the LPA. So each department knows exactly how much they can purchase. So if they're I'll give you an example, CDT, they have a $5 million purchase credentials.
Okay.
So they can purchase up to $5 million under the program. But most programs out there are 80 to 90, say 90% with their delegated authority can purchase under the SLP at $2 million.
Does that mean that CDT could actually exceed the kind of the written value of an SLP and go to $5 million?
They can if they have accreditation for that level.
Wonderful. Okay. And I know that, delegated authority, which I know I'm surprising you with that one, because that's a published amount that a department has the authority by DGS, by Department of General Services, to spend. And if they go ahead, please.
It's rated on how they've been purchasing in the past too. If a department isn't purchasing correctly, they're not meeting the requirements, or they're kind of purchasing outside of what those requirements are, and they get audited, then they can lower those delegated authorities and even have DGS purchase in their behalf because they're not doing things correctly.
Okay. Does the SLP have the software license program? It has a couple. Does it have everything from on-prem to cloud to hybrid as well, or is it kind of all on-prem, or what's the availability of various delivery models?
Available products and services on the SLP are your software maintenance, support, which is your technical support, They have installation, training. As far as cloud, they have software as a service, and they have recently allowed for IaaS and PaaS, infrastructure and platform as a service. However, publishers have to meet all those requirements in terms of conditions with each one of those.
Okay. And can those be, and I know we covered this in the last conversation we had, but it's really important. And one of the most frequent questions I'll get on the SLP is, what about the additive, like after they've made an acquisition of software, the maintenance based on, oftentimes maintenance is always geared to a year based on budget. So they'll have to go out and acquire maintenance in the second year. Can they just acquire maintenance, training, and those additional additives, if you will, through the SLP without purchasing of software?
No, the software has to be purchased. If you're going to purchase any type of service, you've had to have purchased the product under the SLP. For example, the agency can purchase the product and then at a later date purchase the standalone implementation services. I don't know, I think I forgot to mention implementation on that, but implementation services after the fact, which they weren't able to do at one time. But
okay.
Yeah, they're able to do that.
So you can purchase after the fact, right? Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah, in other words, I purchased my product yesterday, and then 2 months from now, I decided, well, I want to implement those, so I'll go ahead and purchase the implementation services. That is allowed.
Another aspect of SLP, obviously, is that it's focused on software. And one of the things that we hear from state departments is the CMAS can be, as you mentioned, it can be kind of confusing to go through all the vendors and vet all the vendors, and the SLP is a bit of a reverse of that, isn't it? Like where you've already vetted the publishers, and the publishers are vetting the resellers on their SLP. Is that a fair statement?
The publishers have full control of what resellers sell their product. It's a conflict of interest for the state to choose the resellers. And number two, the publishers know best who can sell their product, and they have VAR agreements, which are value-added reseller agreements that they negotiate with each other. So they run the show there, which makes sense. And they can add, they can pull reseller off and add it. There has to be a minimum of 3 resellers at any given point. So you can't have 3 resellers on there, get rid of 1 reseller, and all of a sudden you have 2. Departments need 3 if it's anything over 10,000. So.
And the maximum is 6 on that program. Is that correct?
Correct, 6. And I always encourage publishers to use small business and DVBE.
Does a department receive credit? Like you mentioned before, a department can be in jeopardy of their delegated authority if they haven't met their small business, or even this part I'm adding, if they haven't met their small business obligation of 25% or 3% for disabled vet. Do they get credit in an SLP for small business?
Okay, so departments are supposed to, there's language in each contract that they need to purchase 25% from a small business, okay? A small business and DVBE. So that's one of the advantages, I would say, for a small business to get on the program. There's multiple different publishers that they could get authorization to purchase from. And so if a department is getting close to a low goal, that's actually their goal, 25%. And they like to exceed that because they get kind of a few little perks from DGS for exceeding it. Then it gives them an advantage if they're low on their goals to look for a small business.
Very nice. And another aspect of SLP is, I know that there's an interesting point to me because Chad mentioned this about focus, about his success came from a lot of different things, including his incredible passion, but it also came from his focus. The resellers, let's just say IBM, whoever the manufacturer may be, Salesforce, are also looking for those resellers that might have carry that same passion and commitment to the state. It's not, they don't have to have a regimented set of 6. They can interchange the 6 in and out of the reseller program. Is that a fair statement?
I think I mentioned that they can, the maximum is 6. If for some reason some resellers aren't doing their job, they can remove them and then add other resellers. So As I mentioned, small business and DVB is when I met with publishers throughout my career at DGS, 31 years, always had a passion for small businesses, what Chad has mentioned, small business and DVBEs, because they are the backbone of the businesses here in California. And I used to be a small business, my dad's business years and years ago. I retired from DGS after 31 years, but prior to that, I had a small business with my dad, a small little trucking business. So I kind of have the heart for that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. There's also kind of not a spin-off. I wouldn't call it a spin-off, but there's even further kind of consolidation and isolation, like what Vitaly is doing out of the Department of Technology, where he's created an or he and you have created an SLP Plus. Is that a trend that you expect more SLP Plus like things, or is this only or can you explain what the SLP Plus is too?
Okay, the SLP Plus, it's prior to my retirement, Vitaly and I and a few other staff over there, Danielle Canellis and Jennifer Herrera, a couple of other ones. But anyway, they called me over. Amy Tong loved the SLP program, the CIO. And so she wanted to create the program over at DGS. As Chad had mentioned, the vendor-hosted software services, VHSS contracts over there, they wanted to try to make something a little simpler over and make it very much like an SLP. So anyway, I'm sure I helped them bring endpoint security over as a SLP Plus, and all it was very simple. It wasn't rocket science that I did anything special, but we just incorporated some terms and conditions from CDT, incorporated them in an SLP, and so we have it called SLP Plus. So what I recommend is any publishers that are selling endpoint security, that would be a contract to be on. Even if you have an SLP with endpoint security, you want to go over to SLP Plus because those type of services are going to be funneled through that contract. There are some vulnerability security other SLP Plus contracts out there. I don't have the list with me. Apologize. I'll have it for our next session. But there are some more some more SLP Plus contracts that are available now, and I'll have that information here on your next webinar.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. And it really was geared, as I understand it, just to even take it down into another kind of ease of use for all the folks who are looking in the department level for endpoint security, which is a huge application area, software area for departments. They just wanted to make it very easy. Is that what the premise? That was the background of why an SLP Plus? Well,
this is the thing. A lot more resellers can participate under this contract too. It really made it wide open for more participation. So any publisher that can meet those requirements can have their resellers, because you bring your resellers on like an SLP, can participate. Two, it offers services, and a lot of the VHSS contracts don't offer services. Some do, very few do. But there are services under this contract. And also, talking with CDT, when I did put the contract in place, the turnaround time on getting the products to the department were even faster, which I thought was surprising. I'm not putting anything down on CDT, the process or anything, but just because the SLP, they could get their products within a couple of days, it just seemed like it was making it even a quicker process. But the vendor-hosted contracts, vendor-hosted software contracts over there right now, they're good contracts. It's just something that Amy Tong over there thought would be a benefit for having a program like the SLP, but called SLP Plus.
Okay. Did you just mention that on the SLP Plus you could actually have services? And just
there's services on there. There's services on that contract just like there is on SLP. So if they're offering products, then they can offer services. Some of the contracts under the VHSS don't have services.
Okay. Very cool. All right. I know I'm only giving myself 10 minutes to do a demonstration, but at the same time, you and Chad are a little more important in my, and it's kind of fun. I get to ask these questions. I kind of feel like an attorney sometimes, but anyway, I'm not.
Can I mention one thing? Sure. And then give you the floor. I'm sorry, Matt. Just real quick on best value, I think was very important for small businesses. For a lot of times, small businesses feel like they can't compete against other competitors. And what they need to know is that there is best value under these contracts. And what that means is, and I have a list here so I could bring up a couple of them. So if for some reason your price is not the lowest, departments are supposed to look for the lowest price. That should be first. But departments can purchase by best value. So for some reason, let's say they could use small business as a best value. They could, their prior record of a supplier's performance can be best value, the supplier financial stability, the warranties, guarantees, and return policies. There's the different creative ways that they can create a best value and make them more competitive. So now I won't take any more of your time, Matt. You don't have much.
I have all the time in the world, my friend. But that is really important. I would love that, whatever you're reading from, because that's one of the things that we hear from small business when they, and I've heard this from DGS, the kind folks at General Services. They hear those telephone calls where the typical thought is state buys low price, and I don't win on low price. So best value is so important to relay to our audience and the folks that couldn't make it today. So yes, if you have something that defines that, and it's wonderful to hear that a small business could be considered best value. So, and another point before we've got 9 minutes left, and I want to do a little demonstration of where we research things. But folks, for those on the call, there are some really big endpoint security companies like HCL, which bought big old IBM's product line in the endpoint security. They may be Steve, someone for that may need an SOP. They don't have an SOP yet, but they are trying to, for example, get into the state. And I don't know if anybody's on the phone from HCL today, but that's an organization that could become a really important player, for lack of a better phrase, important partner to the state if they get on the SOP plus. So. By the way, last thing I do want to ask this, is the SOP such that you can, unlike the MSA with an anniversary date, can you submit an SOP as a publisher anytime?
Time.
Okay, very cool. All right, awesome, Steve. Folks, if you have any questions for Steve and Chad, and feel free to let us know. We're happy to take them. And if we don't get to them today, we'll get to them via email and respond back. Steve, I'm going to share my screen and go quickly through how we research things and why we research things. If you want to hang on, or if you want to.
Yeah, no, hang on.
All right, man. Okay. All right, folks, I'm going to share. I wanted to cover for the group a little bit of background on research. And I wanted to share a recent story, excuse me. I'm going to go to LinkedIn, and I'm going to go to Dennis Noon's. I'm already on LinkedIn, sorry. Let me go back here. I wanted to share a piece of, you know what? I put it in my reading list. Just give me a moment, TechWire. One of our, an organization that is well connected and well versed in state processes is called TechWire. You see the name up in the left-hand corner. They're a subscription service, annual subscription service that allows the vendor partners to connect with various folks in the state government. And other governmental entities. They host a number of events. Anyway, they're a very good source of data. And I found this quote that came out that was posted by Dennis, who's the editor-in-chief, or chief editor. Dennis, you can correct me in chat if I got your title wrong. But I thought this was really telling. And this really gets to the heart of why companies like ours, for our clients, research departments prior to calling a department. And I thought this was really important. This is the CTO of CalPERS, which is a notable acquisition, a notable buyer in the state. And he basically is pointing out that he liked the way they did their homework before approaching him. We did a recent study of CIOs and how many telephone calls, how many well-meaning vendor calls they get on a daily basis. And it was something in the neighborhood of 70. And the next important question to me was, who gets through? And the people who get through really hold two characteristics. They hold the characteristic of study, and they hold the characteristic of commitment. And what I mean by commitment is that, just like we tell our clients, there's nothing going to win business in a month in the state. This is a multi-year process. This is a commitment, as Chad was pointing out. This is not this is not a 2-week endeavor. This is, I'm going to commit to CalPERS. I'm going to commit to the Department of Justice. I'm going to become a partner. So I wanted to share this that came out of TechWire. You can inquire on TechWire to become a subscriber, as my company is now. But I also wanted to share with you where we pull up our research. So I'm starting from scratch. I have a button here called Market Research. The first thing that I go, there's some areas. We talked about this area called Skippers before. So this is the calepecure.ca.gov. And Skippers is a state contracting. I look at it as the checkbook of the state. And it has a kind of a rudimentary, straightforward screen, but all I did was go to a public website called CalEpecure, as I'm here now. And then I went into this program called Skippers. And I can search on, if I know the department number, every department has a number, and we'll talk about that very briefly. I can search on my competitors, and they'll also have an ID. I can search on a description, such as QRadar from IBM. I can even search on the method, so IT goods, IT services, non-IT goods, and whatnot. And then, of course, most importantly to me, oftentimes, is to look at the acquisition dates. So for our clients, for example, we will often look at how many IT goods were purchased through an acquisition method such as SLP, because we were just talking about the SLP. So you'll notice a number of acquisition methods that a state department can really kind of choose from. And I have a listing of what some of those mean. Fair and reasonable is one that's anything under $10,000. So then we can pick a date, and we can look at July 1, let's say July 1 through 2020 through today's date. Always fun to do things live because I don't know if it'll work. And I search. I pointed this out in the last meeting, but the interesting thing is when you click search and you're looking for the icon spinning up here, it actually spins off to the right. So this tells me, this sent to me back a list of, this provided a list or gave me a list of IT goods purchased through the software license program from this date, from basically this fiscal year through this fiscal year. And then a couple of different things we can do. We know that there's 1,330 acquisitions made through the SLP program. We can download it to Excel is what we like to do, and we like to do our various slicing and dicing of the data and our pivot tables and whatnot. We can look at the types of acquisitions. Now, this is important to us because we will reach out to buyers oftentimes. Sometimes it's important to know, like, okay, do I pursue a department from crafting a strategic model of how to go to market, what departments to choose. So we often will have a client who will say, well, have they purchased any of this kind of product line in the last 2 years? Because if they have, I don't probably need to build a relationship with them. So it's important data to look through. And again, this was just on the software license program. I'm sorry, calepecure.ca.gov. This is again publicly facing website for any of us to look through. You can also look at recent bids, which of course I mentioned earlier in the presentation that we were tracking some 170 bids. There's a lot of bids that are out, including the IT MSA. One other area that I think is important to talk about, and that's the California budget. And there are some really good, there's a great deal of data in the budget that has, so there's a lot of different areas to click on. I look at the detail of the enacted budget, and then this will start to give me data or give you data on various departments within these agencies. So if you think of the California State org chart, you see agencies above departments. So, and within each of these sections, each of these agency links are all of those departments listed. And this gives me an opportunity to go through and look at what are their plans at Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. We can even go to the button to the top, or the navigation to the top, where it says Budget Summary, which I also enjoy. And we can look at we can pick an area, if you will, and look at that. And let's say I enjoy one of the areas we're looking at for our client is criminal justice. And this gives us a summary, a 19-page summary of anybody under the heading of criminal justice. So that Department of Corrections, Department of Justice, And this will start to provide a background on what is their strategic plan, essentially, for this budget year. So now we can get back to that article that TechWire produced. Now we can use that data, utilize that data to approach a marketplace. So let me check for questions. And let me just summarize this today by first of all saying thank you for all the attendees. Again, we try to do these every month. Sometimes we miss it, sometimes we do it, but please feel free to forward questions to us or to me at info@ybmarketing.com. I'll do a summary for everybody this week or early next week prior to the holiday, and greatly appreciate your time. I hope this has been helpful. Even that kind of feedback of, hey, this is, not worth anything, or it's pretty awesome, anything in between is absolutely fine. So again, with all of that said, I'm not seeing any questions. We're going to end it for today. Again, thank you. And we'll be reaching out with summary material, including links to the sites that I just showed, and a link to TechWire, a link to Chad's business, because he does good business development, and Steve, and my business, if you have any further questions or in those areas too. But we'll summarize through email. Thank you, folks, and have a wonderful day and a happy holiday. Take care. Oh, Chad saying, Chad, do you want to say happy holidays, sir?
I was just saying bye, all.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Chad. Happy holidays to you, sir.
You too. Likewise.